table. That's the benefit of getting the permit. People.
Well, hopefully you guys won't have to clean up a mess.
Yep.
So are you associating this group with the people in Portland?
He's trying to trap you.
I'm just asking about the sign. He's trying to trap you. It's a genuine question.
And I also kind of have a problem.
I'm okay. I mean, that's a pretty inflammatory sign.
It's engaging.
Enough cameras going on right now. They're definitely trying to trap you.
Yeah, it's engaging dialogue. That's all it is. It's engaging dialogue. That's all there is to it. You know, if you don't want to engage in dialogue and answer the questions about why you're here,
you see the sign is inflammatory.
So there's no winning. Well, she's calling them Nazis or insinuating they're Nazis.
You said the sign is inflammatory.
If you don't answer, she's trying to insinuate that people are Nazis, so I'm asking her.
You said the sign is inflammatory.
Well, she's trying to say that they're Nazis. It's a controversial sign. It's an open dialogue. Yeah.
Do you not say the sign is inflammatory?
Yeah, it is. She's insinuating by doing that. No, that's why I came out here.
I'm a member of the Washington 3%. My name's Eric Brody.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah. So I'm not saying it's right that Nazis exist. Obviously, that's a wrong thing. But I'm asking about her sign so we can engage in some dialogue and ask why is she calling them Nazis? What in particular?
So you said the sign is inflammatory.
I love that. So it's a controversial sign, absolutely.
Sign inflammatory.
It's intentionally controversial to engage in dialogue, and that's what I'm doing. Because I'm trying to engage in that dialogue with her to figure out why she's holding the sign. And it's intentionally controversial.
Your rights end where other people begin.
Inflammatory versus controversial. I get your distinction there, but I'm just engaging in dialogue.
Are you interested in the gentleman calling us perverts and pedophiles?
I'm going to go there. I just got here and I was trying to figure out how to get across the fence.
So he's literally saying we are the perverts and pedophiles.
Absolutely.
Technically, if you want to cross the fence, there's an opening over there by the cops.
Okay.
And you can get through there by going between the trees.
I just got here and so I saw the sign. I was the first person I talked to, so I'll be here.
So you can say
Wait, 1776?
Your peer got on the TV the other day and said, it's the biggest threat. So when you sit here and say you're inconsequential, I want to thank you for making us so substantial.
That's convenient.
What's convenient is the woman staring at a Jewish man with a son of Dov on the Mikhail. What's up?
I bet you got 88 new members too.
If they disagree with you, right? What is the predication? Some other dipshit over here goes, well, where is Julie? So now you suddenly care about individuals, right?
No.
Good. I know you don't. Good answer. We'll leave it right there.
Julie said that she denounced this. I want to know where Julie is.
We're doing that wrong. Hey, let me show you how to do it. We're doing it wrong. Hey, thank you so much for growing our numbers. Without your anger, without your vitriol, without your
We're building our numbers because of you.
Hey, take off the diaper. I can't hear what you're saying.
We're building our numbers too.
So do you guys support?
Yeah, it's going really well.
Good story. Great story. Great story.
$5 gas.
Great fucking story.
That's right. That's because we call ourselves 3%. We're not selective like you. We're not statements that go and seek consensus from the group. They're telling you what's right or wrong. We don't stand for our principles. You're a bunch of sheep that gather together. But when you're on your own, you are quiet as a mouse.
Grown men being in a changing room, looking at little children, 8 years old. That's pretty. It's self-explanatory. You said it over and over again.
What's up, brother? It's true. I have to be here today, and I'm looking for her. She put on Facebook she was coming today. I haven't seen her.
A lot of people.
So do you know if anything has occurred recently, or has it been pretty much as we see it here?
Yeah, you're kind of looking at it. I mean, before I saw you, the crowd was bigger. The crowd's gotten smaller. There was a whole little festival going on over here in the grass. It's not going on anymore. And people were lined up along the rail line, and it's thinned out.
Opinion on this subject, and they like to racist, homophobic.
It's a little more low key than I think what we thought it would be.
Yeah.
But it's only 3:22.
So you're gonna pull your womb out and your uterus and your fallopian tubes and all that. You're gonna pull that out to become more male. Yeah, whatever you believe. It's over.
We don't have the courage to stand up with other people.
And they don't want to be thought of as the, domestic terrorists, that might pass you back.
I voted twice. One of the things I authentically didn't like about him was he was a little too rough around the edges.
So what's brought you out here today in Port Townsend?
Well, I was here on the 15th. I feel very strongly about women's rights and the infringement of those rights. So that's why I came up on the 15th. And when I heard about this one, I wanted to come up again and be able to speak.
Can you give me a summary of the events leading up to this? Like the background of what happened?
Yeah, at the end of July, an 80-year-old woman named Julie Jaman was at the YMCA swimming, and she was in the locker room taking a shower. She was naked in the shower, and she heard a male voice. And she called out and confronted the male voice, asked, "Do you have a penis? What are you doing in here?" The Y then banned her from the Y for life for complaining about that and for asking if he was a man.
And do you know personally, offhand, any personal experiences that you recall similar to this one?
It's been happening. It's been happening everywhere, because at this point it's socially okay for men to use women's facilities. And it's not all men, but some men who use those facilities do have ill intent. And there's been assaults, and it's not just bathrooms, it's prisons, it's homeless shelters, it's domestic violence support groups. And there's a reason that women need these spaces away from men, because many of us have been victims of sexual violence. And so when you hear a male voice in a space where you're not expecting it, and where you're in a vulnerable position, maybe with your pants down or naked in a locker room, that causes a post-traumatic fear reaction if you've been sexually assaulted. And it's not a matter of being against trans people, it's more a matter of respecting women and what we have fought so hard to get, which is control of access to our bodies.
Then a fourth question, I suppose, was they brought up that apparently the man or the trans woman in this case, claimed to be a ward for the two children, quote unquote, that were undressing. How do you go to thinking over the idea that they were wards, but they only decided to retain them as employees or volunteers for the Y, when in other cases an outright man would be fired on the spot?
Well, it's complicated. I think men can make excellent caretakers of children, And I don't deny men the opportunity to care for or teach children. But in this case, where he was in the bathroom with, I believe, 2 younger girls, and he was helping them with their swimsuits, I don't think it's appropriate that he was allowed to be in there alone with them. He was an employee. They did a background check on them, which was good. But I still just don't feel comfortable with a man being alone with the children in the restroom. I don't think Clementine Adams had ill intent. But one thing that a lot of people don't consider is it's teaching little girls that it's okay to get undressed around men and that it's comfortable to get undressed around men. And that could be setting them up for somebody who does have ill intent toward them. I must have met a woman at some point who had an ID similar or something like that.
What brought you over here to this event in Port Townsend?
To make a stand that what happened on Monday night, the 15th of August, was not okay. The city of Port Townsend had a stand-down order and let 400 people attack us to speak in our mind. We're here to protest that.
So then in relations to that and to the objection to the defining or lack of defining of what a woman is, and with feminism, what example besides here have you had locally occur to you personally?
There was a trans woman here. I was homeless here for many years, and there was a man that identified as a woman, and he tried to get the city to help him. He had been threatened of rape. He'd been beat up. He got protective orders against the city. I mean, we tried to get him with the police. I fought for him, and I fought for Michael Almain, a homeless guy that the city did just went against. And so when I saw all these people ganging up against Julie, I wasn't really involved in the original issue because I'm like, well, that's their issue. But when I saw Pride and the trans activists going against this woman, then I stood and spoke because I know about the local politics and stuff. And so I forgot the question too.
Oh no, that was fine. And then, well, I mean, because it's your answer anyways. Then the third one was in regards to to what they came out with, that the 2 children were wards, even though they were undressing in that room, that the employee was actually ward to them, and as a trans woman, that in any other instance they would usually be fired post haste on the spot, but instead they made an addendum to changing the rules.
Yeah.
And how does that and how do you take to that?
They're protecting only one class. The trans woman has more rights than the 80-year-old. What about respecting our elders? You know, old gals say weird stuff. So do young whippersnappers. You don't sick a mob on them. But yes, they have a rule there, the rule of 3. It's not about trans, gay, whatever. It's anybody. It's 2 adults with the children. They didn't have 2 adults with the child. And then they didn't have a separate facility for people to use that were uncomfortable. Now they do. So they've kind of admitted they were wrong by now having that, but they haven't reinstated her. So that issue is easy. I'm a spiritual leader. I have my own church here. What I'd have done is been like, oh, whoa, now let her get dressed and let's talk about this. I'd have made both sides feel good, had both sides had human rights and equal rights, but instead the Pride community, of which I used to be a part of as a lesbian here, they attacked this woman, and that's why I stood up for her. And I got attacked. Robert Zerfing saved my life, and I'm not going to, and he experienced it as well, and he came here so that we could speak and we could stand up against the city and say it wasn't okay what they did to those women.
Brings you out here to this event in Port Townsend?
I organized this event. Essentially, back on August 15th, I was out here filming a press conference that was supposed to take place. It was being held by a bunch of, I guess they're called TERFs. They're essentially feminists who believe in women's rights, and they wanted to have a press conference regarding a 80-year-old woman who was banned from the YMCA for making a big deal about a man in the locker room. And so while I was out here filming it, I was watching these people get attacked. I was watching the police just kind of stand around and not do much. and it was rough. So as I filmed it, there was people watching it, and people were contacting me afterwards saying that they would like to do something. They'd like to come down and do kind of a follow-up rally or something like that. And through no fault of my own, I ended up being in charge of it, and that's why we're here today, because we don't believe that it's okay for the city to sit here and say things like, I'm glad that these women got attacked, and that I'm glad that this woman got kicked out of the locker room or the YMCA because she's not okay with a man in the locker room. And there's just so many things that's been going on here that's just not okay, and them getting attacked on the 15th it was horrible, absolutely horrible.
So then my second was with regards to this ordeal having to do with the definition or lack thereof of feminism in a setting such as Port Townsend. What locally beyond this one have you had firsthand experience with to relate to this occurrence?
Like events or?
Well, personally in your life, I mean.
But are you asking like what I've had to deal with when it comes to like political events and rallies and stuff, or like the whole?
Well, like anything on a personal note, because I've asked some and they've recounted how they would be in a group not related to like anything just outside demonstrations included. For that personal, rather than just simply, oh, I had this happen because of this event.
All right. Like you're wanting like a little bit of like my backstory?
More like how it does relate to how you've seen this happen before.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I own, or used to own until this morning, a YouTube channel called The Common Sense Conservative. I've been filming political events and protests for the last 7 years, and I've seen multiple times over the years where if a group who does not toe the line of the far radical left decides to have like an opinion or an event, then they're often attacked. I must say, like, I wasn't necessarily surprised that the event was attacked on the 15th, but I was very surprised that I was the only right-winger there. And it was literally left on left. The people who were having the press conference, they were leftists. They voted Democrat most of their lives, all their lives, and they were getting attacked by leftists who, they probably agree on a whole bunch of different things, but just not men in locker rooms being allowed. But I mean, I've had these violent extremists, I've been put on kill lists. They've come to my house and destroyed my property. When it comes to what these people are capable of, there really is no limit. I mean, these people are absolutely insane. And the fact that the president decided to sit there and say that the MAGA right or whatever is the biggest threat to democracy after we've had 3 years of riots in the streets and people dying in the streets by the left is just it's insane. These people on the other side of the barricades all day today, they live in a completely alternate universe void of any reality, common sense, or reason. It's truly baffling to me.
Then my third question was relating to the fact they said that the employee was apparently a ward of the 2 children that were undressing in front of her as a trans woman. How do you reflect on that in the fact that if it were anyone else of any other identification, especially in this political climate, they would be fired post-haste, but instead they were kept, and then as a result they only updated after they had decided not to scrutinize them?
I think honestly, like, there's no excuse. I think there's no excuse ever for there to be a person with male genitalia in a woman's facility, in a woman's changing area, locker room, bathroom, doesn't matter. I don't believe that is a risk that should ever be taken. I don't care if there's special circumstances. I don't care. We have unisex restrooms. We have family restrooms. We have all sorts of different accommodations that can be made and have been made for people with disabilities, for people of all different walks and whatever. Honestly, there's no excuse, no reason, no acceptability for it at all. ward of the person or not. It doesn't. It's irrelevant. The fact that there was a person with male genitalia that was in the locker room, even if the children were belonging to this person or whatever, there's still other women in there. There's potential for other children to be in there. It's unacceptable.
The leader here.
Okay, well,
very nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Look us up if you can. We have a website. Washington 3%.
Yeah, well, anyway, blessings to you. Thank you so much for your service. If I had more time, I'd fetch I got like 3 copies of that movie I loan out. Thank you very much. I'll find it. But if you can, do the red envelope because you'll have the outtakes. Yeah, there it is. Take care, sir. Thank you. Enjoy your little while.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.